Rokket, the archetype that proves that, just like its player base, Konami also doesn't know how to read. So I thought I'd start this video with a pretty hot take. Despite whatever clickbaity title I use for this video, I think Rokket, it's pretty meh. I did quite a lot of hours of testing with this archetype, and in general, I never really had any insane win rates. Well, that was until the season reset and I started playing against actual plat players. Turns out Dark Magician versus a bunch of destruction effects never really turns out too well for them. But in general, I just found this decklist, or this archetype, just wasn't that good. It's not awful, like I was definitely climbing with it when I was playing in Legend, and I've already seen decklists on DLM that have already got King of Games with this deck. It's just, it never felt top tier, or at least it's just sort of a decklist that can steal some games of top tier decklists, but it was never really that strong. To be fair to the deck, I had been up 24 hours when I was doing the testing, and the misplays certainly weren't helping. But in general, I just feel like this archetype is probably going to be better used as sort of a package in other decklists for the moment, rather than a standalone decklist by itself. As simply, I think Launch is just an amazing card. It's simply a 1 card rank 4 or level 8 synchro without using your normal summon in just any other decklist that use spell cards, so it seems like a pretty good package. I've seen plenty of other decklists using it, but the standalones, although playable, don't feel that great. But for those of you that don't really care if something's meta relevant or not, and just want to have something fun and new to grind the ladder with, this decklist does show a lot of skill expression. I know a lot of people enjoy that. I've definitely got a decklist for you guys. So here's today's decklist. Now just a reminder before I get into the decklist, if you're enjoying today's video and seeing more content just like this in the future, especially if you're a returning viewer, as apparently about 50% of people watching this or even subscribe to the channel, nearly all of you are returning viewers who have seen my content before. So you find yourself keep coming back to the channel and see more content just like this, especially if you want to see a Metalrokket video, as I've already done a bit of testing with that decklist, and it does seem like it has a shit ton of potential. So if you're interested in seeing my version of Metalrokket, which will be released tomorrow, remember to leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel down below. Alright, let's get into the actual decklist. Alright, so today's decklist is all about self-destruction, as your entire decklist just wants to blow itself up. This decklist has four main deck monsters, with Rokket Tracer being your main one. This card is a quick effect, can target one face-up card you control and destroy it, to special summon out any Rokket monster from your deck. And this is pretty damn crazy because it can be used as a quick effect in response to any of your spell cards. So it may look like a -1, but it just isn't. Activating a copy of your Dragon's Mirror, you can quick effect to change your Rokket Tracer, blow up your mirror, and then special summon out any Rokket from your deck list, and of course your mirror will still resolve. So it's a pretty crazy effect. Then we have your other Rokket monsters, which all have 2 effects. One of which is when they're destroyed, they just float into another Rokket monster during the end phase. And the second effect is when they're targeted by a link monster that can blow themselves up, to then activate various removal effects, such as your Silver can get rid of your opponent's extra deck, we have your Magna, which can send one monster your opponent controls to the graveyard, and we have your Metal, which can just nuke entire columns. Then we are running 4 different spell cards. Now I found this decklist was really bad if you're not playing the big fusion card, which we'll talk about in just a second. But basically, I'm running as many fusion spells as I can to get this card out on the field, because without it, this decklist just does not feel good to me. So the first fusion spell is your Rapid Trigger. Keep in mind, this is a quick effect. This card can fusion summon one fusion monster in your extra deck by destroying the material on the field, which is pretty damn good because obviously these cards, when destroyed, just float into something else during the end phase. And if you don't know what your big fusion card does, it's basically a quick effect pop of 1 card on your field for 1 card in your opponent's field. So being able to float into more Rokket monsters that can be destroyed by your Borreload, then float into more Rokket monsters, is pretty damn crazy. The other fusion spell is your Dragon's Mirror. This card can just banish the material from the graveyard to special summon it out to the field, and it can only do this for dragon monsters. So obviously, since this card's a dragon monster, you can go into like a Link 2 with your Rokket monsters, have that material in the graveyard, then just activate Dragon's Mirror, summon this card to the field. Pretty easy. Rapid Trigger also has a nice little bonus effect, where it actually makes the monster summoned immune to your opponent's extra deck monster effects. But do keep in mind it also has a downside, where the monster you summon can only attack your opponent's extra deck monsters, which doesn't matter too much in this deck list, as the whole point of this card isn't to summon it to try to beat over your opponent's monsters. It's to summon this card out, then use its effect to continuously loop your Rokket monsters to keep destroying your opponent's cards, or even destroy itself, which we'll talk about later because it has a nice little bonus effect. Then we have your 2 Rokket spell cards, both of which are pretty simple. First one is Quick Launch. This card can just special summon any Rokket monster from your deck. It cannot attack, also is destroyed during the end phase, so it's just your search card for any of your Rokket monsters. Then we have your Boot Sector Launch, which is a bunch of card text, but it's also actually pretty simple and also searchable via your skill. This card is a field spell where on the field, you can simply special summon 2 Rockets from your hand in defense position, or if your opponent has more monsters than you, you can special summon the Rokket monsters from your graveyard until you make up the difference in monsters on each player's field. If your opponent has 2 monsters, you have 1, you can summon 1 Rokket from the graveyard. If your opponent has 2 monsters, you have none, you can summon 2 monsters from your graveyard. Pretty simple card. Now let's move on to the extra deck. So the first card in here is of course going to be your Borreload Dragon, and this card has 2 effects. The first one is as a quick effect, you can target any card you control and any card your opponent controls and destroy both of them. This card also has a bonus effect, where if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard to target any linked to card in your grave and special summon it back to the field, which does come up quite a lot as you'll see in the gameplay, and does heavily incentivize you to actually want to destroy your own Furious Dragon when using its effect. Then you'll notice I have a level 8 Synchro monster in this deck. That's because this card is actually a tuner monster, and as you'll see during one of the gameplay clips, it does actually come up where you can just sort of summon this, destroy your field spell, or destroy whatever card you're activating to just summon out a Rokket from the deck list, and just go into a level 8 Synchro with 3000 attack that can nuke the entire field. You can play basically any level 8 Synchro, it doesn't really matter which one you're running. I just chose Hot Red because I quite like this card. Then we have the true boss monster of this deck list, your Borreload Dragon, which is a Link 4 monster that takes 3+ effect monsters. Neither player can target this card with monster effects. Once per turn you can target 1 face-up monster on the field, it loses 500 attack and defense, and the main use for that is obviously of course to target your own Rockets, to activate their self-imploding effects to destroy your opponent's stuff or banish their extra deck or whatever you feel like doing. Then it has a really insane effect, where if it targets one of your opponent's monsters for an attack, during the damage step or at the start of the damage step, you can take control of that monster, and you keep that monster until the end of your opponent's next turn. So basically, they don't get it back, because even during the end phase of their turn, it just gets sent to the graveyard afterwards. So it removes one of your opponent's monsters as a non-target removal, and it allows you to steal that monster and also attack with it. So it's a pretty damn insane effect that you'll get to see plenty of times during the replays. Then we have your Link 2 monsters, the first one being your Quadborrel Dragon. This card can discard 1 card to target 1 face-up monster on the field. You cannot special summon Link 2 alone monster from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, also destroy the targeted monster. This includes your monsters or your opponent's monsters, by the way. Then if you destroyed a Link monster, you can special summon any number of Rokket monsters of different names from your hand or graveyard up to its Link rating. So this card is obviously insane if your opponent's playing a Link deck, as you can destroy one of your opponent's Link monsters, then just flood your field with as many Rockets as you feel like, easily making it straight into a Borreload Dragon. It's also pretty good destroying your own Link monsters, as we'll talk about in just a second, as they like being destroyed. So then simply special summon out your Rockets from grave, activate the various effects of your Link monsters, and yeah, just flood the field really easily. But do keep in mind, this does have the downside of you can't summon Link to a lower monsters. That may come up, so do keep that in mind when using it. Then we have your Dillingerous Dragon, or I have no idea how to pronounce that, whatever this card is. Once per turn during your opponent's end phase, don't even bother reading this effect as you're never going to resolve it. If a Rokket monster is special summoned to your field while this card's in the graveyard, you can special this card from your graveyard but banish it when it leaves the field. Then we have your Booster Dragon. This card you're going to be summoning quite a lot, as it's your main way outside of summoning out your big one to actually target your monsters with Link effects to be able to activate their various removal sources. Your Booster Dragon. Once per turn, you can target 1 other face-up monster on the field. It gains 500 attack and defense, so obviously, you can target any of your Rokket cards. Alright, if this Link Summon card is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can target one other Dragon-type monster in the graveyard and special summon it to the field, which you're also going to be doing quite a lot, as you'll see during the gameplays. This is probably the Link monster I summoned the most, I think, if I remember correctly. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the deck list portion of the video. The rest of it will be gameplay showcasing the deck list in action, and without further ado, let's get into some replays. Alright, so as you can see with this deck list, I had a pretty decent win rate with it, but like I said, the season did reset, so all of these people were Platinum 1, Platinum 2, Platinum 3. Not exactly the greatest. To be fair, a lot of them were also Platinum rank 6 and stuff, so they were Legend last season, but in general, it wasn't exactly the best showing of this deck list, I'm going to be honest, but I did have a decent win rate with this deck list of over 80%, so let's actually get into the replays. Alright, today I have 4 replays to show you guys, all of which are against no actual top tier deck lists, so take it as you will, but each of the replays do look pretty cool anyway. Alright, so the first one was Dark Magician, which, as I mentioned during the intro, it's not exactly a very favoured matchup for them. Turns out being able to have a quick effect Pop of Eternal Soul basically every single turn generally leads to them not having a good time. Alright, so he went first. Activating his circle, sending his cards, and passing. First thing I'm going to do is activate Quick Launch so I get a hold of my Rokket Tracer. Activate my spell card, then in response to my spell card, I'm going to activate my Rokket Tracer to destroy it. This is a pretty common combo you're going to be using quite a lot. Alright. As you'll notice, by the way, this card isn't a once per turn, so I can actually use a second one, which is pretty crazy. Summoning out a Metal from deck, summoning out a Magna from deck, and summoning out Booster Dragon. This way I could activate Booster Dragon's effect, targeting my Metal Dragon, and destroy every card in this column, which is obviously back row. Obviously he doesn't like that, so he's going to banish it before I can. But I don't really care about this because I have a Dragon's Mirror ready. And I can also shuffle a card into the deck to bring out my Boot Sector Launch and resummon a card from either the graveyard or summon this card from hand. I think I actually summoned from hand dumbly, I'm pretty sure. No, I did summon from grave. Actually, this is a bit of a misplay. I shouldn't have used the Boot Sector yet. I should have saved it. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Summon my Furious Dragon using the card on field and the one in graveyard. Which is why I was kind of irrelevant, because I could have just used the one in graveyard. I didn't need Boot Sector to put it on the field. I don't know why I did that. Should have saved it, but either way. Quick effect, popping one card, popping the other, normal summon this card, and beat over his stuff. End phase, summon out a Rokket from the deck list, bringing out another Tracer. He activates Circle, of course, quick effect pop, nuke that, get it out of here. And he's done so. Yeah, that guy, bit of a rough matchup, the Dark Magician one. Then again, what deck list is bad at a Dark Magician? do they exist? Do they have a favoured matchup? Alright. This replay I'm pretty sure was a fun one. This was a Ritual Beast, I think? Which is normally a really cringe deck to play against, but I quite enjoyed this match. So Borrel Launch, get a hold of my Boot Sector so I can summon my Rokket from hand. So I can destroy both on the field using my Rapid Trigger. Destroy both, summoning out the pseudo-boss monster of this deck list. Well, it probably is the boss monster of the deck list since it's the one you summon the most. No animation though. Summon out my 2 Rockets from deck. And pass over. So opponent's going to summon a monster. This is a card that has a effect that I don't like, so I'm going to pop it. Unfortunately, he just resummons it anyway, so wasted my time. Swings in. Before he can destroy it, I'm going to Rokket Tracer, swap it over for another Rokket. Summoning 2 cards from the deck list, because during the end phase it summons another one. Alright. Popping itself to get my... make sure to put my fusion in the graveyard for later on, so I can use it to summon out a Link 2. Targeting my monster, which is now going to destroy all cards in this column, so the back row and the monster on the field. He's going to ambush in response, which is a bit annoying because of, yeah, floaters. Dragon's Mirror, summoning out another copy of our boy, Furious. Beat over his monster. End phase, the cards I destroyed, summoning some Rockets from the deck, and passing it back. Summoning out his big dude. Honestly, I think I could have just popped this card before he did his fusion summon. That was probably best. I don't know, but either way. Destroys my Link, so I can resummon out my Furious. I try to target his monster even though I know I can swap over, I don't know. Need to get rid of it, I guess. Need to make a swap over at some point. Alright. Summon out this dude from the graveyard, destroying off my own monsters, then destroy his card. Then because I don't want this card to float, I really want to remove this card manually, so I can send this card to the graveyard and not destroy it so it doesn't get its float effect. I shouldn't even do that, sorry. Actually, this can't even... I don't know, either way. Sorry, I should go for Borreload, because I can just yoink it. That'll stop it floating. And you get a nice animation as well. So summon out my Borreload, target his card, yoink it, so it doesn't go to the graveyard yet, doesn't float. End phase, it then goes to the graveyard, but didn't get destroyed, so it doesn't float. Summon my dude from graveyard using my Borreload Furious. He had a grid apparently, didn't even notice that. Tries to use this card, I have a warning point, so yeah, that's not gonna work. And I think he concedes? Yeah. So that was a nice little showing of this deck list, even if it was against a deck list that is a bit of, a little bit outdated nowadays. Alright, this replay is going to be very different from the other ones, as I just wanted to showcase simply synchro monsters that you can play in this deck list. And how easy it is to summon them. This also gives me a lot of hope for this deck list in the future, having a lot of potential, as if they do add one of those really crazy synchro, level 8 synchro monsters from the TCG, or from like Master Duel. Yeah, this deck list would be really good. Because it can summon them really, really easily. And there's a lot of synchro monsters they could add to the game that would just break this deck. Certain Borreload Savage Dragon, for example. Alright. So opponent's obviously playing Blackwings. Sets up a very, very mediocre board. Basically a load of garbage. Get hold of my Boot Sector. Activate it. Before I can use it, my opponent MSTs it. Now, normally, I wouldn't really have a whole lot of plays to make after this, as obviously I can use my Rokket Tracer in response, popping the field spell so I can summon a card from deck, but then I just have the 2 monsters on field and can't really do much else. So instead, I'm just going to summon out... Oh my, this animation is dope! Summon out my hot Red Dragon Archfiend, which can destroy all special summon and tap position monsters, or just all tap position monsters actually, that isn't itself. Swing in, beat over one of his cards. He tries to half its attack, but it still has just a little bit too much, and he has to concede. So yeah, don't be afraid to play synchro monsters in this deck list. Honestly, there are so many dark ones in the game, it's just whatever you feel like playing. Scrap Dragon is also a pretty good obvious choice. I think that one's a dark, because you can destroy one card you control, one card your opponent controls, which includes all your rockets for their float effects. Or you can get that one card that targets your opponent's stuff and sends it to the graveyard. I think that's also dark. Actually, now I think about it, is Scrap Dragon even dark? It's probably Earth. I don't know, either way. I think Scrap Dragon's actually Earth, ignore me. But you can certainly use the card that targets your opponent's stuff and sends them to the graveyard. Alright, final replay. This was against, I think, Red Eyes. This was a nice little replay, this one. Alright, Red Eyes Ledge, tuffling a, or getting a hold of a card and sending one back in. Putting one back in. Putting the Gear 3 back in that he just added. Get his Insight, sending the dude to the graveyard, blah 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 blah, getting Red Eyes Fusion, you know the drill. Out he comes, Red Eyes / Dragon. With an equip, and I think he had some back row as well. To summon my Rocket, activate my spell, target my spell in response. This will summon 2 rockets from the deck. Summoning a Metal and summoning my other dude. Borrel Launch, getting hold of my field spell. Now I'm going to make my Elite 2, so I can target my Metal, which will then destroy this entire column worth of cards. Huge nuke. He does get a bunch of floats off of it, but this doesn't matter too much, as we've already gotten rid of the main annoying one. Also, you notice it's actually imbalanced field now, so I can summon a card back from grave if I like. Which I don't do. Not sure why I didn't. Could have gone to a like Wing 2 or something. Either way, whatever. Go into my Borreload Furious. Pop one card, pop his card, and beat over it. I should probably have done some actual cool stuff if I'd summon a card back from grave. I don't know. Either way. End phase, summon back a Tracer from deck. and Metal Dragon summons out a Magna. Today's fight tune, popping off my field spell. Red Eye sending a card to the graveyard to search for its Null Fusion. Summoning out, of course, another copy of Slash Dragon. Which is going to do absolutely nothing, as we're just going to pop it straight away. And that's it. Alright guys, thank you guys for watching these replays, hope you guys enjoyed them. If you did, don't leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. My Dolce video tomorrow, which I think will be a banger video, as I'm pretty sure that deck list is really good. Even if it isn't top tier, it will definitely be like, that can steal some tournaments, that deck. Anyways, without further ado, thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.